All right, welcome back to the channel, subscribers. So, the WBC finally has a resolution to a performance-enhancing drug-related issue that came up in a fight between the WBC heavyweight champion, female heavyweight champion, Cruz-Dezurn Cruz, and the challenger, Alejandra Jimenez. Let's talk about the WBC's resolution to that problem and why it is evidence of it leads me to believe that they might need to be shut down. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel, subscribers. We're going to talk about the WBC and performance-enhancing drugs again. Not a new conversation, is it? And as usual, very lenient, borderline encouraging of the use of performance-enhancing drugs in the sport of boxing. Now, before I get into that, I want to say thank you so much to everybody that supports the channel. I want to thank everybody through watching the videos, supports the channel through watching the videos, through sharing the videos. I greatly appreciate it when you guys share the videos. Also, thank you to everybody that supports as a member, as a Patreon, as a patron on the Patreon page, and people that come by the live streams that we do Monday through Friday. We're a very, very active boxing channel. We're continuing to be active. So the fact that you guys are here supporting it makes an incredible difference. Thank you guys so much. Now, these, all the videos that I'm doing today, that I've done today, all kind of have the same tone, right? Because we're in a very, somber time in the sport of boxing, right? And in the world in general. So in that vein, I want to talk about a decision that was made by the WBC to reinstate Cruz-Dezurn. I'm going to call her Cruz because I know she's not going to appreciate me beating her name up. Cruz-Dezurn and Alejandra Jimenez. So this is what happened. Cruz-Dezurn was the heavyweight champion of the WBC. Alejandra Jimenez beats her. Right after that fight, you have a bunch of reports come out from a former opponent of Dezurn Cruz that Dezurn Cruz was not actually a female, right? That she's a man. Now, the way that it is, the political way to phrase that is that she was not born a female. She transitioned into a female, right? So I gave it the way, many people understand it and the way that many people want it described. That is what the issue was with Dezurn Cruz. Not with Dezurn Cruz, but with Alejandra Jimenez. Now, the response of the WBC was that this was nonsense, came right off the gut. It's nonsense, and we stand by our champion and all of that, right? Completely brushed it off. Well, after it took place, she tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. So it may not have been what the opponent thought it was, that she was actually a male. Maybe it wasn't. That she was actually a male. It's that she was pumped full of steroids, right? And she might be turning into one, right? Whatever the case is, there was something funny that they pointed out about Jimenez Cruz. The WBC brushed it off, right? But then she tests positive. So what for a performance-enhancing drug? So what did the WBC do? Now, I could have told you this well before. They're not going to do much to her at all. Now, despite the fact that I do believe that there was more than one belt on the line, and another organization, I should look it up because I don't, but I think it was the WBA. I think it was the WBA. But either the WBA, I think, gave Dezurn Cruz her belt back, but the WBC did not. The WBC, and correct me if I'm wrong on that scenario, that's me going off my memory. I believe the WBA, that it was for 2 belts, and the WBA gave the belt back, gave the belt to Dezurn Cruz or vacated it. But the WBC, they vacated it, but they did not do any. They did not reinstate Cruz. They didn't reinstate her. So now that at least 8 months, 7-8 months have gone by, 7-8 months have gone by, the WBC announces that they're going to reinstate DeJourn Cruz to her championship. So at first I thought, okay, well, yeah, they're doing right on that because, hey, this should have been done. And I believe that the WBC is a highly politically motivated organization, right? So it doesn't surprise me at all that they put the black champion back in her place. Now, that's my assumption, right? And that's my assumption, and that it's just, anecdotal evidence for that, right? Maybe it's coincidence, whatever, right? But it happened, and that's what my thoughts were, right? That's what my suspicion was. Not valid and not something that I know took place, but something that I thought took place. But I read it, so I kept reading the article, and then I ran into what happened to Alejandra Jimenez. And that's the problem. Alejandra Jimenez received a 9-month suspension from the WBC. How is that going to affect her? She's not fighting but once a year, maybe once, twice a year anyway. That's how often boxers, champions in boxing fight. Once, twice a year. So you might have cut her off for a fight from the WBC when all she has to do is go fight somebody for a WBO belt. She can go fight somebody in a fight that's not sanctioned by the WBC and then be right back fighting for the WBC in 9 months without having missed a beat. So basically her punishment is no punishment at all. And also take into account the fact that we're in the middle of this virus and this quarantine, and then you don't know, and we don't know whether or not she was even going to be able to get a fight. And when does the 9 months start? If they say the 9 months start when boxing returns, right? When boxing returns, then you're talking about 9 months from about 2 weeks from now, because Top Rank is going to be putting on cards in June, right? And these are going to be small cards, right? Small cards, not big fights. So now what is the clock ticking on the 9 months? So she probably wouldn't be in the ring for the next 6 months anyway. So it might be a 3-month suspension, but yet it doesn't matter that she's suspended anyway, because it's just the WBC. There's only one sanctioning body that punished her like that. She could be fighting over for it just doesn't make it literally does not punish her at all whatsoever. However, if the WBA, matter of fact, I do believe that the WBA suspended Luis Ortiz for testing positive against Deontay Wilder in the first fight. I think they might have suspended him for 2 years for performance-enhancing drugs. Oh, I know for sure. If that didn't happen, I know for sure that Dillian White was suspended for 2 years by the British Boxing Board of Control for his performance-enhancing drug test. A suspension of less than 2 years is nothing. A suspension for less than 2 years is nothing. But this is just another, and this is not just, this is not just an isolated incident with the WBC and the way that they are looking at the issue of performance-enhancing drugs in boxing. You have Canelo Alvarez that they gave a slap on the wrist to, and they now have lowered the combuterol levels. Then what they did was the WBC, I do believe, also during the time that boxing was held off, they cut off testing by VADA, even though VADA itself said that they could administer the test in a way that could keep fighters safe. So they suspended the testing from VADA. This is ridiculous. And then listen to the explanation that they gave for the 9 months. They said it was because she was cooperative. And she had never tested positive before. She had passed multiple tests. I think one of the criteria was actually duplicative, right? Because he said they had never tested positive before, and she hasn't tested positive in her last 4 tests. Whatever. I think that sounded like it was the same thing, but like you couldn't do one without the other, right? You couldn't never have tested positive in performance enhancing drugs and tested positive in the last 4 times. Anyway, maybe I misunderstand that justification because it just sounds ridiculous. But they also said that, she was cooperative and she willingly accepted interest into this disciplinary program. Man, that tells me, hey, if I'm on performance enhancing drugs, shoot, I want to go to the WBC. That's what I want to do. That type of punishment seems like they're competing for performance enhancing for violators for performance enhancing drugs and not trying to get rid of it. So you raise the level of performance enhancing drugs that are acceptable under your tests, right? Also, when Alexander Povetkin, the opportunity that Mauricio Sulaiman had to punish Alexander Povetkin for testing positive for performance enhancing drugs in before his fight with Deontay Wilder, the WBC and Mauricio Sulaiman himself was the deciding factor in Povetkin and his promoter not having to pay Deontay Wilder the money that they owed him because he had flown out there. The fight was already there. They got him out of the breach of contract from a complaint from Deontay Wilder by being non-committal about whether or not Alexander Povetkin violated their rules. These guys are ridiculous, man. They're ridiculous, and you just can't hope at all that these people are going to actually try to solve this problem. And I don't think they actually believe it's a problem. They might believe that, hey, we need more muscular boxers because that's better visual for the television screen. Who wants to see fighters fight that don't look like bodybuilders? Who wants to see women fight that look like women, right? This way, if they all get so juiced up that they can dang near pass for men, that's good because it'll increase the interest in women's boxing. Man, at the end of the day, it's all for the money, and they ain't disciplining anybody, and they're an absolute joke as it comes to this issue on performance enhancing drugs. And at a certain point in time, man, somebody needs in the United States, I'm quite sure that there's an organization. As a matter of fact, I know that there is under the Ali Act that's responsible for the administration of it, that should not allow the WBC to sanction fights in the United States. If they're going to continue to have this laissez-faire an attitude or dismissive an attitude about one of the most serious risks to the life of a boxer and consequently to the sport of boxing itself. Because eventually some juiced up dude, and it probably already happened, some super juiced up dude is going to on national TV kill somebody, and then after it test positive for performance enhancing drugs. And then it's going to be a firestorm that is going to severely hurt or could severely hurt the sport of boxing. Similar to what's going on with this issue on a much more severe scale, obviously, much more serious scale with Mr. Floyd. Unless if the people in blue were legitimately concerned about this issue and going and solving the issue, right, then you might have had a situation where we wouldn't be here right now. But the problem is when you keep putting a cap, when you try to put another editing issue, I'm back. So in conclusion, if you try your hard, if you continually try to plug up a geyser, right, where the water spews out with a plastic plug, right, and somebody's standing on top of it, it might hold it off for a little while, but eventually the pressure's going to build up, the pressure's going to build up, the pressure's going to build up, and it's going to explode on you. It would be much better to try to handle these issues the right way to begin with. Do it solidly. Do it effectively, do it sternly, and then people understand that no, it is not in your interest to use performance enhancing drugs. As it is with the WBC, they are depending on how much money Alejandra Jimenez made in boxing versus what she could do in some other profession where she lives, right? That it is in her benefit to do it because, hey man, if I'm not on it, I could lose. And if I get caught, it's not going to affect me. All I'm going to do is I'm not even going to get a suspension. All I got to do is sign a piece of paper saying I support you in your program and say I'm sorry. That's it. And then I got to be careful about doing it again. That's it. It's just terrible, man. But anyway, it is what it is. You let me know what you think in the comment section. With that, I'm out. Peace.